Hello, I'm Jody. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Jody Wolfborn. I have suffered from imposter syndrome for many years, and so I decided why not try to help overcome that and try to help other people overcome it with me. So a little background on myself. I studied theater in college, so I am a professional imposter. So I have a lot of expertise in it. And I've been in the IT industry for about 7 years. And I really love dogs, and also exclamation marks, which you'll see on all my slides. First, I want to kind of talk about some rules of engagement for this speech. This is all stuff that I've found that I've tried and that maybe worked for me, but maybe it didn't. But everybody is different, so if you find anything useful in this speech, use that. If you don't find anything useful, then I'm sorry, but take what you need and leave the rest for others. So what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a sort of mental state of being, I guess, where it's a very intense feeling that you don't belong in a group, and that someone is going to discover that you don't belong there and expose you as a fraud. If you've ever had any of these thoughts on the bottom, like I'm just waiting for someone to realize I don't know what I'm doing, or what does that acronym stand for? Why does everybody else in the room understand it and I don't? I have no idea what I'm supposed to understand. You might suffer from imposter syndrome. These are also some people who have suffered from imposter syndrome. Einstein, who gave us, among many other things, the theory of relativity, Chris Martin, who has produced however many albums with Coldplay, Maya Angelou, John Steinbeck, Tina Fey. All of them have actual quotes on record saying something along the lines of, I was just waiting for everybody to discover that I had no idea what I was doing. Einstein actually said, the exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler. In other words, he's like, I'm cheating the world and they don't know it. We all know him, we all understand his concepts, but even he felt like an imposter in his own time. So, why do you care what imposter syndrome is? That big green circle is the percentage of people in the world who suffer from imposter syndrome at some point in their life. 7 out of 10 people have a feeling at some point, I don't belong here. So let's get this out of the way. Raise your hand if you're a human being. Okay, cool. So we all belong here. We can all not feel like imposters. So let's define a couple of things. First, what is an imposter? An imposter is defined as someone who's lying about belonging to a group. Unless any of you is a cyborg or an alien, none of you is lying about belonging in this group. We're all human beings. An adept is someone who is skilled at what they do. It's not someone who is perfect at what they do. It's not someone who's like the top expert in their field. It's just someone who has skill in what they do. Since we're all currently breathing, I think we have skills at being human, so none of us is being an imposter. And then the last thing that I want to define is hubris. And hubris is sort of the anti-hero to imposterism. Hubris is an inordinate amount of pride, probably undeserved pride in your own accolades. So it also in Greek tragedy, Remember, I studied theater. In Greek tragedy, hubris is also a technique in plot writing wherein the person who suffers from hubris eventually leads to their own destruction. So their pride, their over-excessive amount of pride actually leads them to become an imposter, essentially. So hubris actually leads to imposterism. This is one of my favorite quotes from Bertrand Russell, and I tried to highlight it from the movie Harry Potter, because I believe that Professor Lockhart here, who's looking at a painting of himself painting himself, he has a little bit of hubris, and eventually in his storyline, it does lead to his own demise. There we go. Wait a minute. There we go. Sorry. I want to define a couple more terms that I think will help understand and deal with where imposter syndrome kind of comes from. The first term is a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is a binary translation of your goals. So let's say my goal was to come up and give this speech. I'm up here, so yes, I am successful in giving my speech. It doesn't necessarily take into account how much my hands are shaking, how much my legs are shaking, my voice, whether I brought water up here with me. So let's just hope my throat doesn't get dry by the end of this speech. I like Star Wars, and this might make me really unpopular, but I don't think that this quote by Yoda, I don't agree with him. This quote implies that either you can succeed or you can fail. If you're not going to succeed in the try that you're going to make, just don't do it. There is no try, right? There's only a success or a failure. And I think that puts people into a fixed mindset. When you look at this quote, you're like, well, if I'm not guaranteed to succeed, then I shouldn't even do in the first place. It makes stuff really difficult. You don't learn as much if you're in a mindset where success or failure determines what you've learned. And then the opposite of a fixed mindset is a growth mindset. And a growth mindset is a fluid translation of one's actions or accolades. So, thank you so much. Now my voice won't get dry, so this speech is a success. A growth mindset is a fluid translation of your actions. So success is measured in whether you learned something instead of in whether you accomplished what your original goal was. And in an agile world, a lean world, being able to have that fluid movement and adapt and be agile is important. This is sort of characterized by a quote. There's, with a fixed mindset, if at first I don't succeed, I'm just gonna stop trying. I'm not gonna try this again. I embarrassed myself. I got fired or whatever, what have you, whatever the result is, you don't try again. A growth mindset is, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Learn from that mistake, look at what you did that failed, and say, oh, okay, now I can try this again without those qualities and move forward. So I have an example of, two examples of a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. I am relatively new at my company, and I am also I did not study computer sciences in school. And so moving into an IT realm where people love acronyms, it's just every conversation you have is peppered with acronyms. If you are not from the IT world and someone doesn't explain what that acronym is to begin with, you're gonna be sitting there like, well, I don't know what DSL means. I don't know what ACL means. I don't know what any of these acronyms means. like I said, I heavily suffer from imposter syndrome. So moving into the IT realm for like 2 years, there were probably 20 acronyms that I used in my day-to-day life that I did not actually know what they stood for. I knew the idea of what they stood for, but I didn't know the actual words. And finally, I realized, hey, there's this thing out there called Google, and if you Google an acronym, you can actually usually find out what it means. And that way, I admitted I don't know what these acronyms mean. I'm gonna start Googling them. And then in conversations or meetings with other people, I started to notice that when an acronym was used, 1 or 2 other people would have the same look that I had on my face, which is like, I'm just gonna nod, but I don't know what that means. And so I decided, hey, instead of Googling it, I'm going to ask out loud, what does that stand for? Because if I don't know what it stands for and other people are making the same face I'm making, they probably don't understand either, and they would probably appreciate knowing. So I started asking out loud, and in a meeting with one of my managers, I asked, what does that mean? And he turned to me and said, thank you so much for asking. I've been wondering what that means for like a month. This is my manager. He's above me in the food chain, and even he didn't know what it meant. So I had a growth mindset, and not only did it help me learn something, it helped other people learn something. On the flip side, when I was Googling stuff, yeah, I learned it, but nobody else necessarily learned it. And I can't go straight back to the slide. Actually, yes, I can. Look at this. Where's my mouse? Oh, never mind. I won't try. But if you guys remember that pie chart, 70% of people suffer from this. So if you take this entire room, only 30% of the people in here feel that they don't necessarily suffer from this. So if 70% of people are suffering from it, you're not alone. There's other people out there who feel that fear you do, and that can start to help you grow. But on top of that, if you open yourself up and do expose yourself as an imposter with very heavy air quotes, other people will be able to benefit from that as well. So, how do we start to combat imposter syndrome? One of the first things that you can do is build an inner circle. And this is going to be not necessarily like friends or people that you hang out with and party with on the weekends, but people who will help you be confident and help you change and grow. So you should have a mentor, someone you can ask questions who you feel has more wisdom than you. Someone who loves you unconditionally. Someone who, if you get up on stage and trip and smash your face or do whatever, by the way, these are all the fears that I'm having right now, that I'm going to trip or something, that even if you do all those things, they're still going to approve of you and accept you. And you need trusted advisors, someone who's going to say, you pronounced that wrong, here's how you say it. Or, hey, I noticed you made this choice, and I think if you consider, this other choice might have been better. So in the future, maybe make this other choice. It's someone who's going to tell you like it is. This is my, well, except for Keanu Reeves, this is my inner circle. This is my dog. He loves me no matter what. Even if I don't throw the ball for him in the morning, he still loves me. I can still come home when I've had the worst day ever, and he's still gonna be like, hey. This is my bestie. She tells me like it is. If I do something stupid, if I'm mean, if I'm not truthful, she's like, hey, you weren't exactly straight on that. Let's talk about why. And with her, I can start to understand the choices that I make. And then this is the poster for the movie Devil's Advocate. It is important to pick your devil's advocate really, really wisely, because anyone out there can say no or the opposite of what you say all the time. And that's not productive necessarily. If someone is always saying, I don't think you're right about that, then you're going to start to doubt yourself 100% of the time. But you do still need someone who's going to say, hey, I'm not saying you're making the wrong choice, but I need you to consider that there might be another choice that you can make. So surrounding yourself with these people, you need to be able to choose them wisely. Like, it shouldn't all be the same person. It shouldn't all be the same type. You should have a good mixture of a mentor, a trusted advisor, someone close to you, a friend, and an unconditional love. That's my dog. He's my favorite. Okay, so now that we have these definitions, we can start to talk about how you deal with imposter syndrome. If you recall, an adept is someone who's skilled at what they do. So the way that we avoid being an imposter or someone who isn't skilled at what they say they are skilled at is we remain adept. You need to be aware, you need to be deliberate, empathetic, powerful, and tenacious. So how do you maintain awareness? You need to know what triggers your own imposter syndrome. Speaking in front of people triggers my imposter syndrome. So I try to put myself in situations where I can attempt to overcome that. I also know, though, that certain phrases set me off, like when people ask me questions in certain ways that implies I believe you don't know what you're talking about. That makes me feel like an imposter. I think it probably makes everybody feel like an imposter. But so now that I know that, I'm not going to use those phrases when I talk to other people. I don't want to trigger imposter syndrome in someone else, so I'm not going to say, are you sure that's the choice you want to make? Or phrases like that. You also need to know that you're not alone. Really, like 70% of people feel this. So if you're ever feeling like an imposter and you're like, nope, everybody else understands what they're doing and I don't, and they're going to discover that, just remember, they're probably thinking the exact same thing you are. And you need to know when to admit that you don't know something. If you don't know what an acronym is, ask, and maybe everybody else will learn a new acronym. So now you need to, advance the slide. There we go. Next, you need to be deliberate. So you need to make a choice to change your attitude. If you have been operating in a fixed mindset, now you know what a fixed mindset is and what a growth mindset is. Now you can start to switch over to the other thing. And it's not like a light switch. It's not going to, I'm in a fixed mindset. Okay, now I'm in a growth mindset. We're good to go. It's definitely something you have to work on. So you have to be deliberate and you have to start changing the way that you talk, the way that you listen, and the way that you learn and grow. You also need to be empathetic, and not just to other people, but also to yourself. You need to understand that sometimes you are still going to feel like an imposter, and you just need to be able to identify those moments and tell yourself, everything's gonna be okay. You need to listen to your body. If you're not treating your body well, if you're not sleeping at all, or you live in a cave, you're not going outside for vitamin D or anything like that, it affects the way your body works, right? Depression and anxiety, those are real things in this world, and they are affected by how you treat your own body. If you treat yourself well, then you will be able to start start treating other people well as well. You also need to listen to your instincts. If your instincts tell you like that's probably a bad choice to make, then maybe don't make that choice. If your instincts are telling you that the choice your team lead is making is wrong, then you have the power to say, hey, I don't know that choice is the one that I would make. You're not telling them you're making a wrong decision. You're just telling them, hey, I think there might be another way to do this. And you need to listen to others actively. And this is really, really important. I think one of the aspects of open spaces that I love the most is you're supposed to listen more than you speak. Nathan Harvey from Chef has a favorite phrase that's like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So you should be listening twice as much as you are speaking. And whether you agree with that or not, that is sort of null and void. The point is you need to be actively listening to other people in order to learn from them and in order to improve yourself. Whew. And the last thing, I think, might be one of the most important things in this entire deck. You need to listen to the good things people say about you. It's so hard to accept a compliment for me. When someone compliments me, I'm like, no. I run away. I don't like receiving compliments because it makes me feel more like an imposter. But you do need to listen to what people say. If 100 people are saying, hey, good job on that, maybe you can start to believe that you did a good job on it. Just listen to them. And even if you don't agree, allow that feedback into your life. Whew. Be powerful. Okay. You need to exude pride in yourself. And I don't mean hubris, like don't be like, yeah, I am the most awesome at everything I do. I'm the best speaker, I'm the best computer decorator with all my stickers. I just know everything about everything. No, but you do need to listen, as in the last slide, listen to the good things people say about you and accept some of them. You need to exude confidence. And even if you don't feel it, if you fake it long enough, it will start to change the way you view yourself. And it will start to change the way you do things. Even if you are not confident, if you pretend that you're confident, then you will apply for a speech in a different country and get accepted for that speech and speak in front of a bunch of awesome people. Even if you're not confident in yourself, exuding confidence will help you. One of the things that I do before my speeches is like power poses, where you just like make yourself as big as possible. And it helps, it actually like activates your lungs, and there's a bunch of scientific reasons why it's good. But I like it because I'll be like standing in a corner, standing like a starfish. And people will come up to me and be like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just doing my power poses. They don't always work for me. So like this stuff, I try it and I am constantly trying to improve. Sometimes power poses don't work, but you gotta keep doing them, and then eventually you will have done so many power poses that even the moment you put your arms up, you're already like, yep, I'm ready for whatever I'm about to do. Because you've told yourself, when I make power poses, I am more powerful and I can do these things. You've convinced yourself of that. I almost said lied to yourself, but you're not lying to yourself because you can do it and you are powerful. And then the last thing you need to do is be tenacious. Like I said, I do power poses and they don't always work, but I'm gonna keep doing them so that I get that, the benefits within me, even though I can't feel it in my brain, the rest of my body knows that I am pulling in more oxygen. Fight the urge to give up. It's so easy to to sit in a meeting and say, I should ask this question, but I don't want anybody else to think that I'm dumb, so I'm not going to ask it. It's really, really easy not to do anything. It takes a lot of tenacity to tell yourself, no, I am going to do this. You need to fight that urge to give up and constantly be improving yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to learn anything, and you're never going to improve at anything. You also, there's no way to fight the fear of failure, right? You're always going to have, maybe some people might not have any fears, and they might not be afraid of failing at anything. They probably are not an imposter syndrome person, so they probably don't suffer from imposterism. But I think you should fight the concept of failure. If you don't succeed at something, it does not make you a failure. It doesn't even necessarily mean that you failed. Yes, you might have failed at the very, very exact goal that you set out for, but as long as you learn something from that non-success, it's not a failure. You're still learning and you're still growing. And you need to fight complacency. That's like just sitting there, yeah, I don't know this, but whatever. I'm still able to do my job even without that, so I'm just gonna let that fall by the wayside. You need to actively be trying to improve and actively going out and learning and actively trying to not feel like an imposter. So remember, 70% of people suffer from this issue. You're not alone, and despite the title of this speech, you do belong here. Everybody belongs here who is here. The important part about overcoming imposter syndrome is that you don't give up. That's like, if you only take away one thing from this entire speech, don't give up and, two things. Don't give up and you're not alone. The quote here from Twitter, this is from Science Girls Zero, and she is a professor of science. I'm not sure at what university, though, because it's Twitter and I'm not good at Twitter investigation. But she says her advice to her students is that feeling of, I don't know what I'm doing, it doesn't go away. You don't necessarily get rid of that feeling, but when you do feel it, you start to say, I can learn from this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I can learn to do what I'm trying to do. And I like this tweet because immediately someone responded to her. I keep trying to advance it by pointing at the screen, which is not my computer, so that wouldn't work. She gets a response from someone who has finished her PhD and has a job in her field and still feels like a fraud. Does anybody else have that same experience? I still feel like a fraud even though I have a job and I've gotten promotions and I've had several other companies reach out to me, other people see value in me that I'm like, no, I'm just gonna hide. I did it again. I pointed it at that. Sorry. Okay, so I want to close the speech with a quote from John Steinbeck. He's an author, and if you recall, he was on one of the famous imposters slide. John Steinbeck suffered from imposter syndrome, and this is in one of his books, I believe, The Grapes of Wrath. Oh my gosh, yes. And he says, now that you don't have to be perfect, now that you're not focused on, I need to succeed at everything that I do, including asking questions and understanding things, now that you don't have to be perfect, now that you know that you have these goals and you can start to learn from them, you can at least go out there and be good at what you do. I also like a quote from a woman who does a lot of speeches, and so I read her book as I was preparing for this speech. She said that her dad was like very strange when they were growing up. He just wasn't a typical dad. He probably, the way she described it, he was probably a tech nerd, in fact. And he encouraged her to be as weird as she could be when she was a kid. And what that gave her was this sense that like, it's good to be weird, right? Uniqueness, I know we all talk about like, let's eliminate unicorns, right? Let's treat servers as cattle, not pets. But in human beings, we are all different, and we do need to embrace that uniqueness. And so what she says is, look, there's a good chance that you're weird. I think that's awesome. Don't sit there in the crowd and wonder, am I weird? Are people gonna think I'm weird? Go out there. You should be doing what you want to do and taking chances and moving in the direction of your goals and dreams. So that's it. That is how you overcome imposter syndrome. So, any questions or time? Are we good?
No, not really.
Oh, no. Did I go over?